Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for the Tour of Flanders preview, both men and women's race. We had to wait for the finish of Dwars van Vlaanderen. Normally we do the preview record on a Tuesday, but with so many big favourites from the leaders from both Little Trek, who look good on the weekend, and Visma Lease Bike, we wanted to make sure we'd watch Dwars van Vlaanderen first, or at least that race had finished first. And that ended up being the wise thing for us to have done, unfortunately. I was traveling. I actually had to go to Brussels, to and from Brussels last 2 days to actually go to Ghent. But so I didn't see Dwars van Vlaanderen. I was in the air on the worst flight I've had for a long time, Benji. Like 2 hours straight turbulence. And, I'm a lapsed Catholic, but sometimes when the plane's shaking a little bit, you think, oh, maybe, just to be sure, we'll say a few things silently. But yeah. That's what. So you're gonna have to fill me in. I know, but you need to provide a bit more color. Dwars van Vlaanderen, which is like a mini rehearsal. What happened today?
Yeah, so basically Dwars van Vlaanderen, the race with most of the RVV people except for Van der Poel at the start line, is how I would describe it. Early drama in the race. Tratnik DNF'd. Piffy broke his bike in half. Brusinski as well. So some breaking the bike in half action pretty early in the race. But it all really came down towards the Berchtenhouten Canarieberg segment in the parkour, which is somewhat halfway. And in the descent of Berchtenhouten towards Canarieberg, the most important but unfortunate thing of this race happened, which is a brutal crash in the leftover peloton after Visma kicked it off on Berchtenhouten. And in that descent, the victims were the following. Basically, 3-4 riders of Little Trek. Alex Kirchhoff was on the floor. Jasper Stuyven on the floor. Mats Pedersen hit the deck. Stuyven is the worst one of those three with a broken collarbone. He was looking so good in the last, 3 weeks now?
He was
a bit meh, but he looked so good. And he was one of the riders that I could see winning this race because it really works in that way that a rider could go early and then Wout van Aert and Mats Pedersen look at each other, that kind of vibe. But yeah, Stuyven and Pedersen both down. Pedersen did jump back on the bike, so did Alex Kirch. So let's hope they're relatively okay. Wout van Aert, also one of the main victims of this crash. And unfortunately, he broke his collarbone and multiple ribs, so he is out for the Tour of Flanders, for Paris-Roubaix, for Amstel Gold Race. I think they reported as well at Visma Lease Bike. And I'm already guessing collarbone plus multiple ribs. His preparation for the Giro is already kind of reduced, no?
Yeah, I mean, the Giro's in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So, you do altitude after Amstel, after maybe one training week or so. I don't know exactly, but yeah, it depends on the severity because there's collarbones and there's collarbones.
Yeah.
Like we saw with Arkea, they seem to be the opinion that Amaury Capio's collarbone was fine after 12 days, and he maybe thought that was a little bit quick. But like when Jack Haig, he crashed in the Tour in 2022, the Roglic one, Colbrelli one. He his break was he had a really bad break, and then I have to get it's just not a normal. There's different collarbone breaks. I'm not a doctor, but so I don't know, and no one probably knows. So it's impossible to know how it affects the Giro, but certainly the big news is the Tour of Flanders and Roubaix is gone for Van Aert, which is very, very sad because he's been preparing for this for best part of 6 months. Up at altitude, race schedule, training, everything. So, that just sucks. But that's, I think, I don't really know what to say about it. It's also not predictable, Benji. I'm not saying it's predictable, but there's a reason we also waited for this race to finish today before doing the preview with so many big favorites doing it, because we're worried that, even if it's Sturva or someone, it makes a big difference. So he was the second favorite for Tour of Flanders, and that really colors our whole preview. That's why we had to lead with it. Did you mention actually how the race finished?
I haven't yet. I just want to say it's just gutting when it comes to Wout van Aert. You see that happen? Same when it comes to Stuyven, that their preparations are fucked, that their goals in Wout van Aert's plays, he focuses solely on these races, RV and Roubaix, puts everything aside for it, like CX and so forth, World Championships. MSR didn't ride it for this, and then to have this happen. On one end, that's the risk of having such a focused schedule, but obviously you don't want to see this happen in preparation of those races. Definitely not. So Biniam was also involved, but apparently he has no fractures. I think Antermache reported. So that's a fortunate consequence there. It's the same exact spot, by the way, the descent of the Canarieberg where Biniam crashed last year.
Oh, yeah.
That is the same descent that they take out of RVV this year.
There's a big wide split of death in it, right?
I don't remember that part, but Flanders Classics has taken this descent outside of the Tour of Flanders, including the Canarieberg is gone from that race. But they hadn't removed it yet from Dwars van Vlaanderen, which is really unfortunate. And I can't really blame Flanders Classics for being too slow with making their parcours safer when they're actively trying to do it in their races. You know, it's kind of like in the middle, you know? Because they're making their races safer. They were just too slow with it with Dwars van Vlaanderen.
Yeah, I mean, it's still... Yeah, I don't know why this one in particular is so dangerous, whether it's the road service or what, because like it's not... They crashed on a straight. They still crashed on a straight, and it was... Van Aert overlapped his front wheel, and Minot shifted out to the left, trying to do the lead out into the Canarieberg, and overlap wheels banged down 70 k's an hour, see you later. So, yeah, it sucks, but Jorgensen then goes on to win the race, 1-2ing Koen and EF.
And
literally identical to last year. Like the same teams. Koen is the same rider that was being 1-2 last year, and it's two Vismas, including Benoit. Yeah. And then the other Visma wins. So Visma end up winning, but with Jorgensen, who's I mean, we should say a note now. Jorgensen is clearly their leader for Sunday.
Oh, for sure. He's definitely their leader, but I still think that they should still look at the other riders and try and use them still. It's not like it's like all out Jorgensen and all the rest can like full on domestique. You need to play around, otherwise you might not beat Mathieu van der Poel in the first place. So you're gonna have to find a few tricks up your sleeve to do that in the first place. That being said, EF was really good with Betjo and Valgren, and to see Valgren be so good in this race after his comeback, which has taken multiple years, going from not being able to ride to going into the dev team of EF to then going to the World Tour team now and being able to deliver here. Really nice to see that. And that was the light point here. Betjo once again cramping. That was kind of funny. Because, mate, he does it every time he's competitive these days.
Because at TDU, you're like, oh, it's the heat. It's the heat. But
yeah.
I checked the weather this morning. It wasn't so hot in East Flanders today. So I don't know what it is.
Anyway, that is Dwars van Vlaanderen. Tour of Flanders, that's a bigger race. And that is the race that everything is building up towards, together with Paris-Roubaix. And that's the one we should jump into the preview of this time. But there's a few parkour changes of the Tour of Flanders, right? Because, first of all, it is still a very long race. That is very notable. If we take a look at the race, it's loading. So I'll tell you in about 1 second what it looks like, the parkour. We've got a parkour that is 270 kilometers long. Jesus, my internet. First half is basically completely flat. Second half is where the hill zone is at.
Yeah.
But in the second half of the race, about 125 kilometers from the finish line, we start off with the first Oude Quadramont. And then you've got a descent towards the consecutive hills. Kapellenberg, Wolvenberg, Kerkgaten, Jagerij is more of a gravel segment with some uphill in the Kerkgaten one. Molenberg, Marlborostraat, Berendries, Valkenberg, Berg ten Houten, Nieuwe Kruisberg. And then we get to the final, let's say, 65 kilometers of RVV, where you'd usually see the favorites acting up, which Oude Quadramont, Paterberg are the first two. Then Koppenberg after that, Steenbeek, Steenberg. Then once again, to the, well, first Oude Kruisberg and Hotond, and then Oude Quadramont, Paterberg again with about in the last 20 kilometers. So that's what the parkour looks like, but the changes are the following. Halfway the race, I spoke about the Wolvenberg after the first Oude Quadramont. The run into the Wolvenberg is now the Kapellenberg. Last year that was Eikenberg, the year before that was Achterberg. So a different climb there. And the other change was the one I mentioned earlier, which is the removal of the Canarieberg, which is now the Nieuwe Kruisberg Hotond after Berg ten Houten. So I don't actually think these changes will be massively changing the parkour in any way.
I think there's a little bit less flat, no? Like there's maybe one climb. I think there's one extra climb. It's a little bit harder between First Claremont and the Valkenberg is how I remember it. But for context, all these climbs, They're all between about 300 meters and 700 meters, averaging about 6 to 7% with a pinch in it. So the Valkenburg is 600 meters, 7%, and there's 200 meters in there at about 13%, and then the rest is false flat to 5%. The exception to that is the Paterberg, which is 400 meters, about 11% cobbled. The Koppenberg, 600 meters, 10% with 300 meters at 12% cobbled. And of course, the Oude Kwaremond, which is by far the longest climb in the race, which is 2.6 kilometers, mostly cobbled for the last 2 kilometers of it, with about a K in there at 6%. And they do that 3 times. So most of the climbs Benji read out, punchy, maybe 30 seconds to can I count? No, like they don't do them at 60 kilometers an hour. No, it's not 30 seconds. Like, that's impossible. No way they do a 60 kph. They do it slower. So maybe like a minute and a half. A minute to a minute and a half. Paterberg maybe less. I can't count. But yeah, it's when you look at this parkour and you compare it to, say, Dwars van Vlaanderen today, you compare it to even E3. It's 70 kilometers longer than E3. The amount of climbs all put together is much more. It's literally 100 from, they do first climb and there's a little bit of rest. There's literally 100 Ks where there's almost no flat, where they're just going up, down, up, down, up, down, and some ridges, some ridge lines. And that's why this is the race where Poggy, who might have to follow in Dwars Duel in previous years, comes to this race and can smack everybody. But he's not here this year. So maybe we go, do you want to start with the big favorite, Benji, and his team?
Yeah, I jump into that. So if we take a look at the riders that are starting this, the obvious big team is Alpecin. Mathieu van der Poel, winner of E3 already, and he's been pretty good in the other races so far this year, I would say. In the end, Wevelgem was pretty strong as well, just lost out on against Pedersen at the finish line. In his team, the likes of Philipsen, Søren Kragh Andersen, Johnny Vermeers crashed today in that descent as well, so I don't know if he's going to be at RVV or not. Whether he continued or not, I don't know. I think he ended up going to the hospital, but I'm not sure. Sylvain Delier, also in the team here, so I'm looking at this team and I'm thinking, okay, Van der Poel's fucking good. Philipsen and Søren Kragh Andersen are good riders. Vermeers, if he's there, is a good rider too. But it's not the almighty team that can control everything. And I think that's a vibe that I'll pull through in what I expect to happen from this race. But how much do you see as the likelihood of Van der Poel winning RVV?
Maybe 60, 70% chance to win. Okay. Maybe more, maybe 80%. Depends on his team controlling, depends what other teams do. It's the double whammy, because if it's Wout van Aert out, okay, there's one thing. But then you now have Sturven out, who I think actually might have been better than Pedersen for this race, because Sturven actually in E3 was stronger.
It's not just individually, but together.
The whole teams,
it matters. Because now you lose a potential numerical advantage from Little Trek, and you lose a potential numerical advantage of Jumbo-Visma or Visma-Lease bike. So, oops.
Because if it's 1v1v1, if it's 1v1v1v1 in the last hour with Van der Poel, normally he just wins in his E3 shape. Like his E3 shape, he just wins. But yeah, as you said, if there's 3 teams with 3 riders there on a really good level, it's different. But like, to your point, Alpecin de Koenig, if they weren't before, they are like the target. It couldn't be more on their backs in terms of like no Trek helped pace today with Visma. No way Trek should pace on Sunday. No way Visma will pace on Sunday. Maybe Bora will for Jordi Meus, but there's just the target is now so firmly on their back without even. I mean, who knows about Pedersen's shape, but even with Sturven out, I'd be surprised if Trek pace. So that's more the question mark now: is can they manage that Alpecin de Koenig brake formation and managing the brake, managing early jumping. I guess we should move to the Visma team, Benji.
Yeah.
Van Baarle pulled out of today's race with sickness.
Yeah.
Laporte's got an issue. Tratnik DNF today after he crashed in the last weekend's races. Van Aert's out. Like, need I go on? And now
Hagen is out.
Hagen is out.
Is Affini good? Because he wasn't there today, eh?
Affini's good. Pretty sure.
So, what team are we looking at? Jorgensen? Benoit, even though he crashed at E3, looked pretty good today.
Yeah.
Trotning might resurrect. Because he might have DNF today, but I don't know what's going on with him. So maybe he'll be in the team or not. Van Baarle might resurrect himself after his sickness too. I don't know. He also crashed in E3 as well, so that adds on to that. Laporte is definitely out. Wout van Aert is definitely out. Hagenes is definitely out, is what was reported by the team. So how do they fill that up? And then I'm like, Affini probably if he's good?
No, Affini was doing it anyway.
Okay. A Van Dijken brother? And now, my wild card. Put Olaf Kooi in the race.
No, it's just silly.
No, that's not silly. Like,
but he's a
Merlier was useful last year in the earlier moves. Why could Kooi not be useful in earlier moves to try and annoy the fuck out of Alpecin?
And there could be some wind and rain on the weekend. I think Olaf's not too bad in some shitty weather.
And
some crosswind action early. Actually, you're convincing me now.
Alpecin has Philipsen. Like, Philipsen was
pretty
versatile at Milano Sanremo.
Pretty versatile.
But Kooi was not too far behind in Sanremo. So
far enough behind. I mean, yeah, I'll take your point. But Tour of Flanders is a bit of a different beast. I mean, if he really wants to do it, listen, there's probably a few spots going, and maybe I don't know if Van der Sande crashed in Gaan Wevelgem. I know he DNF'd.
Yep. Hurt his back.
Yeah, so
Vermoten?
Yeah, I think the Van Dijk brothers and Vermoten, but really the leaders are Benoit and Jorgensen to me is like the 1A, or like the one really. He's been better than Tish in the classics.
We're talking about numerical advantage, and you're gonna need a lot to be able to basically attack Alpecin before Van der Poel decides to drop you. Is how I see it.
Yeah.
And then I look at Little Trek for a second before we jump into tactics from all the teams. Let's do Little Trek. Mes Pedersen crashed today. Staven is out. Milan was fucking good today, actually, but like in the background because he kept coming back after being dropped. So that was actually really fun to see. But see, he's like Kooi. Somewhat. Alex Kirsch crashed today and crashed in Gent-Wevelgem on the descent of the Kemmelberg.
I saw he already had a deep cut in his hand too.
Oh, let's hope he can start, but that's a pretty rough thing to have when you're riding on cobbles, I'd say. Squins is in the race and looked pretty good in previous weeks. So that's a reduced team as well, which means that both these teams, Little Trek and Visma Lease Bike, have reduced numerical advantage because the way I looked at the parkour, going back to the parkour for a second, I saw it in a few phases. You've got the entire run up towards Oude Quademont where you got breakaway going and then Alpecin having to control basically the breakaway, I'd say, because if I'm another team, I'm not doing it. Then I'm
Shouldn't everyone try getting the break?
I think it's a good idea. Like,
well, who's gonna stop them? Sylvain Dillier for 3 hours?
Who knows? He probably won't stop them. But I agree. So point one, phase one, breakaway. A lot of teams should be trying to get in the break, if not everyone, except Alpecin probably. Then Kapellenberg until basically Berchtenhouten, maybe ending at Valkenberg. So the middle phase of the race with all those hills we mentioned, like the Wolvenberg, like the Berendries. That is for me the zone where Alpecin is the most vulnerable outside of the breakaway formation. Because that's where Alpecin will have to control the moves of all the outsiders, including probably
to do it. So
and maybe early mode Philipsen. If they use him for that.
Yeah, but okay, like
I like get towards the Wolvenberg.
Yeah, I like Philipsen, but if Fred Wright jumps or Moritz starts jumping, Philipsen ain't doing too much.
That's true. Like, and also
he can do one climb. He's really explosive, but he can't do the multiple ones.
And how do they respond to that? Do they respond to that by closing the gap, or Sørenkrog jump towards them and sit in the wheel? Because then Jorgensen will be okay with Sørenkrog being in the wheel.
Yeah, that's the tricky. You're right. That's the trickiest phase for them, and basically their whole game plan is going to be get Van der Poel as close to the finish as possible, so he can drop
it himself.
Yeah, so he can drop everybody. Now in E3, 85 kilometers from the finish was fine. Yeah. So that's the Bergten-Halte. It is 75 kilometers from the finish, and there's a steep cobble section. And so on the Tyenberg, Van der Poel went in E3, attacked 6 times again, attacked on Paardenberg, closed down every move, with Sørenkrog doing a little bit, won by 1.5 minutes, could have been 2 minutes. So, but you're right, they can't do it from first climb on. It's 140 kilometers from the finish.
And the perfect example of that is last year's Tour of Flanders. Because if you look at that race, you see a race where I think it was first on the Wolvenberg, we saw some early moves, but I think Pogacar was in that move, so they pulled it back again. But then on the Molenberg, we saw a move by Asgreen, I think, which formed a strong group, together with Pedersen included, together with Van Hooijdonk, if I remember correctly. Trentin also included, so UAE and Visma were included, together with a lot of other teams that, Pedersen had downhole in the breakaway, and then Asgreen had Melier in the breakaway. So those were domestiques up the road that could help that group gain even more time on the peloton, where Alpecin was fucked. Like, the gap went to 2 minutes, went to 2 minutes 30, went to plus over 3 minutes before UAE started panicking and closing the gap for them.
Visma did it.
Yeah, UAE did it in the run-up to the Oude Quaremont.
Oh, yeah. But also Visma before started chasing because they got worried, because they got so worried.
They also got panicked.
Yeah, so I almost think, it's actually a different race for Alpecin. And yes, whilst it, of course, having no Van Aert, no Sturva, and no Laporte, it actually, when you really go through the parkour, it does seem there are some complications for them. Before we get into the maybe the second tier teams or the second tier favorites, a self plug. We just uploaded on the Lanterne Rouge YouTube channel the film we've been working on. It's been like 2 weeks of full work from us, from Jacket Friction Collective, our videographer, and co-editor on the film, and we just uploaded it a week in Flanders. It's like a feature-length film. First time we ever tried doing something like this, and for a first crack, I personally think it's a pretty entertaining film. We've done a good job, and it was fun to make as well. So I'm sure if you like the podcast and you got a spare hour or 40 minutes before the Tour of Flanders, this is a great refresher of all the climbs that are in the race, all the main climbs in the race. You can see us groveling and struggling on them. But yeah, that's a self-plug. What do you think it's a good video, Benji?
I think it's a really good video. It was fun making. We enjoyed making it. It was also fun giving you the opportunity. Well, I didn't give you the opportunity, but helping you explore the Flemish culture around cycling as well. So I enjoyed it. Too bad it ended up with me having COVID. So I'm fucked. I'm crooked these last 2 days. But hey, but outside of that, I really enjoyed it. And I hope the people watching also enjoyed, because it's different kind of content, but I reckon they like it.
Yeah, I think it's, and we want to do more of that sort of stuff. We're supported by Cycling in Flanders as well. So that was, thanks for their support for making that happen, that video. And we want to do more like that. But anyway, back to the start list. Quick-Step, Soudal Quick-Step, they had a crash car today, I believe. But in terms of their classics core, they're looking okay. They're still on the start list. Alaphilippe, Asgreen, Lampard, Moscon. They had Pedersen in the early break today. I think they got to be moving early. I mean, it's the same. That applies to basically all these teams. So I'll say that once and then rattle through. But FDJ, no Pithy, it seems like, but they have Kung, Aski, Legac, and Madouaz, who's podiumed this race in 2022 when he and Van Baarle caught Poggi and Van der Poel. Narvaez is back on the start list for Ineos. He, like Tratnik, crashed quite heavily in the last week. No Josh Tarling. He came in the top 10 today in Dwars van Vlaanderen. I do hope they lean into him being a classics rider rather than a GC rider, because he is a classics rider.
Mate, I don't know if you saw the moves that he had, mate. He was dropping on every climb, which was logical because he weighs
can
more
only
than the
do
other
500
dude.
watts.
And he's like the cleric mode where he can only do X amount of, but also every attack he does looks like he's in slow motion.
He can only do
Like-
500 watts.
It's like he's like, whoa, I'm attacking. And everybody's like, I can see you're attacking, man. I'm in your wheel.
But then he just stays on it.
And then Kung's on the other side, like, oh, I need to push every bit of power I have in this group to drop Tarling from this group, and then I don't have the energy to close the Visma rider attacking. That was how it went.
Yeah, Tarling is kind of like
a what?
Like the Spanish big boys who are actually climbers.
Lascano.
Like he is like Lascano, I think. But like more
TT de Klerk.
Higher threshold power. But yeah, Roubaix's really the one for him. So I don't know if he's doing Roubaix. I hope he is. But yeah, Narvaez and Chef look like the Ineos leaders if Narvaez is on okay shape. Lascano is the Movistar leader. At least maybe Cavani doesn't know, but everybody else does. UAE have Pollitt, Wellens, Morgado as their main guys. Bjerg is not too bad, and he or she is sort of doing the domestique duties. Abrahamsen, I think podium today. He was allowed in the early breakaway for UNOX. He's a truck. He's a definition of a truck, that guy. He's really good. Varensgold, Tiller, Christoph, Hulgaard. So they're bringing out all the best classics guys they have. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who's going to be too good from them. Tudor, I think Trentin really merits a mention. Like Trentin, did he not crash out or puncture out of E3?
I do not remember.
I think Trentin is fucking cooking.
He was ahead in RVV.
Was he?
What wasn't Trentin at some point in a Chasse Patate again the last week? Trentin in every classic season he goes into a Chasse Patate move.
Yeah, so Trentin I really like. I think he had, I think E3 he was good and had an issue, but you're right, he sometimes gets to do a Chasse Patate. I even think, I'm not sure if he wanted to wait for Poggi last year. Bahrain, Moric, Govakar, Fred Wright, no Rajovic, thankfully, probably for everybody.
Jesus Christ.
Decathlon Ajuzer, La Mondiale, Pierre Gotera, who was good in Omloop, Dries de Bont, who I think was in the move today, and Oliver Naesen, who was very unlucky in E3, punctured on the Timberg or the climb before. And I'm missing, as one good team I'm missing. He did well today. Hey, well, you joke. EF, that's who I was thinking, yes. Bettiol, previous winner, and he's actually in good shape, apart from the mechanical and the legs today.
Two-trick pony?
I mean, this is kind of the one where, don't you think it's going to be a weird race?
I feel like it's going to be a really weird race, and there's something in me that says Van der Poel doesn't win.
I also got that feeling that because he's never been this short for a race. For the big races he's had to do before, there's always Van Aert or Poggi. Tour of Flanders, Roubaix, Worlds.
I don't think Alpecin has the team to control the middle phase of the race.
And like, it depends if, like, it's the writing's on the wall for everybody. So like Lotto Destiny, Berlins, Campenaerts.
Crash today.
Yeah, me and you, Benji, have not had the best run of luck.
I've gone through the list of Visma riders and Lotto riders that have crashed, and it triggered me to send out a tweet yesterday asking who was the most crashing team in cycling right now. Because in 2020, it's probably still Ineos, because Sheffield crashes 17 times per stage race. C-Rod crashes a lot. Hater crashes a lot. That's one thing. But outside of that, it's Visma and Lotto, I think, who are like the runner-ups. Because, like, mate, this team is broken people. Yeah.
It's been a crazy couple of weeks in terms of sickness and crashes, not just in those two teams, in a lot of teams as well. Like even, with Capio. Astana, Brusensky, and Syriza and Case Bowl. Who am I missing? Axel Zangler, Cofidis, keen to see how they go. They've been having a really tough 2024 Cofidis, so they really need to step up. I did mention Quickstep. The big team we haven't mentioned, or the big contender we haven't mentioned is Biniam Gourmet at Intermarché Wanty. They have quite a good team, I actually would say. I think that's actually quite a solid team. Bini de Puta. Is it de Puta or de Pouta?
Dries de Pouter.
Dries de Pouta. Hugo Page, Adrian Petit, Lawrence Rex, Turnison, Zimmerman. Actually, 6 of those riders, I'm not sure Zimmerman in the classics, I've not seen too much from him, but all those other riders, like Lawrence Rex won Le Samyn.
Yeah.
Turnison's a good classics rider.
Yeah, but
Hugo Page was anticipating in the Camelback.
I feel like this is a Roubaix team when it comes to Rex and Petit.
Yeah. It's still a team where if shit kicks off in crosswinds, I would expect 4 guys to be there.
Yeah.
So it's quite a nice team, and I really hope Binny can get a good result. He didn't finish today with the crash. He actually looks much better than he did in the classics last year, where he just looks in really good shape again. So yeah, we've rattled through all the teams, at least the provisionals, except for DSM, Degenkolb and Patrick Eddy, maybe the leaders there.
Abandoned today.
Did he?
Yep. Eddy did.
Damn. Jayco's the only team we haven't mentioned. Michael Matthews, their leader, most likely. And Dylan Turns at Israel Premier Tech, as always, can be...
Matthews can top 10. Win the sprint behind. I think that's a possibility.
All right. We've rattled through all those teams. Let's clarify now what should happen, Benji. Which of these teams should help Alpecin control the break? Or 0, right? Okay, there's no...
0 teams?
Not even Trek with Pedersen.
Not even Trek?
Okay.
Not even EF? I feel like in this race, EF will at a certain point pace when they shouldn't. My head is saying something along the lines of EF will pace where they shouldn't at some point. And I think it's because I just rewatched Tour of Flanders 2021 earlier today, and at a certain point on like a random cobble sector, they came to the front, started pacing, and then after the cobble sector, they stopped again, and it wasn't really for positioning. So I don't know what happened there. So I feel like that vibe is happening again. But I agree, no one should help Alpecin when it comes to brake control. They should actually make it as hard as possible for them.
Would you rather have... I feel like every team should be happy having its second best rider take its chances in a big break compared to trying to have a conventional race. So, for example,
against
UAE, would you rather Pollitt against Søren Kragh or Wellens against Van der Poel? It's a very clear answer to me. Little Trek, would you rather Tom Skuens against Søren Kragh or Niels Pollitt or Mads Pedersen against Van der Poel?
I think we're looking at it too black and white. As in, I think we're looking at the break formation as in Alpecin will control the break formation. But the reality is, if all the teams want to go in the breakaway, they control the breakaway formation accidentally themselves.
Yeah. Because not all 17 of teams will get in neatly, and then only Alpecin are missing. That's not how it works. What actually happens is maybe 8 or 10 get in, there's 7 left out, and their directors start going crazy on the radio, and so they're 7 teams chasing.
Yeah. That's a problem for our team.
That's the reality of break formation in these classics, especially long flat ones. And last year it took a long time to go. Roubaix in the previous years, it's just taken a long time to go.
Every classic this year has taken a long time to go.
But certainly now it's Visma won't be, you would think with Nova Art, be so keen to lend a helping hand.
No, it's self-sabotage.
Yeah.
It's like Bora today. Bora was actively helping the breakaway in Dwars van Vlaanderen, helping chase down the breakaway for the Vismas and Little Treks of the world. And that is self-sabotage because you're not only taking away domestiques and riders from yourself later in the race, you're also actively helping the others save energy to smash you on the climbs.
Yep. Because then they got the domestique to do a lead out. Okay, so how do you think this... I think we've done a pretty long preview for a race where I just checked Van der Poel's the first favourite at $1.50. Jorgensen's the second favourite, which is what I think I said a 60 to 70% chance. That's about 66% implied probability, 60%. So how do you think this place plays out, and who are you picking, Benji?
Okay, so the way I think this race will play out is we got a breakaway. Alpecin has to control with someone like, I don't know, Dillier or something. There will be some team that shows up and is like, oh, I'm going to help pace or something. Let's hope
Fair
they
enough.
shouldn't for the sake of the
3-6.
race. Then we arrive at Oude Kwaremond. Nothing happens there, but I think in the zone between maybe on Wolvenberg, maybe on Molenberg again, like last year, we will see people trying to create groups ahead to put pressure on Alpecin. That includes Visma for me, that includes Trek for me, but also all the other people that are trying to benefit from this chess match between Little Trek, Visma, and Alpecin. So I see moves happening there, and I think a group goes away there and Alpecin can't control it. And then Van der Poel has the YOLO behind it, and he misses out by 1 meter on Alberto
1
Bettiol,
meter.
who wins. Yes.
The size of my bike.
Mate, if he had
to...
pedaled 1500 watts for 50 seconds, he would have won.
Yeah, I keep telling everyone to do that. It's so simple. It's like you just get to the big climb, just do that. You'll win Tour of Flanders. I agree with you. I think that's a very big chance that plays out.
We're both saying Van der Poel will not win.
No, I'm picking Trentin.
Why are we picking Italians? Both Italians.
I think Trentin will podium at worst.
Oh, I feel like I want to pick someone else then.
Trentin
we're
is
both
in
picking
good
an
shape,
Italian guy. Otherwise, another country.
Tudor look like a different team. I think Trentin is going really, really well, and he's smart enough to know that he did it last year. He was in this move when Pedersen jumped. He was like the first guy chasing.
Yeah.
Last year.
Albanese top 10. Sorry, go ahead.
Isn't Pedersen kind of fucked now? Because when last year, when he jumped, there was a Van Aert bait to stop Van der Poel closing Pedersen. But now with no Van Aert, and with Pedersen having whacked him in Gent-Wevelgem, isn't he the first guy that if he tries to jump on the Wolvenberg, Van der Poel's like, you're actually the guy I have to close, and I can ignore the others?
Yeah, but the problem I'm looking at here is the following. We've spoken about this kind of like narrative a few times. I think in the World Championships of Wollongong and Glasgow even probably. Pogacar had Tratnik, and they chose to put Tratnik in the move with Evenepoel in Wollongong. It's kind of the same vibe that I have. That's like putting Søren Kragh in a move with Pedersen. That's a move that Van der Poel has to respond to himself, but
do you think he'd do that now with no Van Aert?
But that increases the likelihood for me that a different group gets away. You know, if Van der Poel responds to Jorgen, but also, are we really sure that Alpecin will go with the strategy of trying to control it, or will Van der Poel just go fucking YOLO on Wolvenberg and so forth, or will he run out of energy like he did at Gent-Wevelgem? Then
I don't know. I mean, he's not stupid.
Because if you drop people, you drop people, eh?
He will say the team will be talking to each other, and so if Søren Kragh says I'm on my last legs, he has to go.
Yeah.
If Vermeersch is there, Dillier's still there, and Søren Kragh is fresh as a daisy, then no, he doesn't have to jump at 100 Ks to go.
It's not just about their legs, eh? Because if someone attacks that is literally better than your domestiques combined, then those domestiques.
That's a short list.
Pedersen, Jorgensen, Bettiol. Definitely.
I'm just saying. I think Van Aert being out. I mean, the way Van der Poel rode on Sunday, I found strange, but I feel like now Pedersen is the man that Van der Poel is like, I'm going to give you the Van Aert treatment. Is what I think. And actually, Schoens is the man now who goes in that move.
But then who's screen that move? Is that
Lascano
who gets the benefits from all
win
this?
This race. Schoens is cooking.
But so can Lascano.
No.
Did you not see his PR on the Bonjeberg?
Schoens will drop
when
him
he attacked Jorgensen and dropped him.
Yeah, I was stupid.
And today
Didn't he lose like 2 minutes?
I don't know.
He probably should work with Jorgensen. Anyway, that's our men's preview. It's a lot of how will people play Alpecin?
Wait. Final victory. You say Trentin?
I picked Trentin, yeah.
I'm going to go with Bettiol. Fuck it.
Yeah, Italians. Viva Italia.
We are delusional, probably.
Yeah, but what are we going to do? Pick the $1.50 favorite? That's tedious. I'm sorry.
Don't pretend we've not done that before. Who did you pick as your favorite for MSR?
He's not $1. He wasn't $1.50.
He was favorite though.
Who did I pick? Van der Poel.
Van der Poel?
Yeah, but you think I'm going to pick Poggy for the Giro? No. Boring. even though of course he'll win. But Trenton's going to win this. Mark my words. He's way underestimated. His shape is way better for this race. Okay, on to the women's preview, where actually there's a really fine balance now.
Right.
Because Marianne Vos is cooking, and maybe update us on what happened in the women's race today, Benji, which is a continuation of the theme we saw on opening weekend.
Exactly, and also a continuation of the theme that we saw in Dwars van Vlaanderen men's, where drama, because there was a car accident between the race doctor car of the men's race, which was coming back from treating Wout van Aert and so forth, and a quick step car, which resulted in the neutralization of the women's race. The race doctor is reported stable in the hospital, so hopefully everything's fine with that guy. Post neutralization, I swear they stood still for an hour. Like, it felt like they stood there for an hour in that spot neutralized. But when it restarted, I think some teams probably were not as attentive, which shows by what happens afterwards. You get to the Huizenpondweg, I think it was that section, I can't even remember which cobble sector it was. It was like a fast cobble sector, and we get a move by Little Trek with the likes of Longo Borghini, with Ronde van Vlaanderen, and responding to that, Puck Pieterse, Marianne Vos, but some others, but who's not in there, SD Works, they were straight up sleeping. And this caused a gap to exist of like 10 seconds, which means that maybe 5 to 10 seconds, Kopecky had to bridge that gap solo. Straight up bridges that, but she's kind of like stuck in the middle for a while on that cobble sector. Like, Pete Kopecky closed that in no time, in my head. But she didn't, and it didn't look super great, and I feel like from that point on, I didn't fully trust Kopecky in this race anymore, and anyway, she bridges to the front anyway after a bit on that cobble sector. Got a group of like 7-8 or whatever. Shirin van Androoy attacks. They Little Trek try and use their double riders to roll attacks. Vos follows that. I feel like Vos never wastes energy. When she attacks, it's always the right move. And I don't know how she smells it, but this was the right move. Kopecky can't really close that, and others do look at her to do so. A small move by Longo Borghini that attacks behind and then actually gets the rest closer to Shirin van Androoy. But anyway, Shirin van Androoy sits in the wheel, says, I've got Longo Borghini behind. Vos sprints from the front and still destroys Shirin van Androoy. So Marianne Vos is on form. And that's lovely to see going into women's RVV. Because women's RVV, I'll let you go to the parkour this time because your profile might load a bit faster than mine, that's for sure.
You put me on the spot, Benji. No, it didn't. You put me on the spot. Oh, dear. I even got the Ethernet because Luke won't let me use Wi-Fi anymore. All right. 163 kilometers long from Oudenaarde to Oudenaarde. They do a loop. There's the north loop and then the southwest loop where the Quarmont area is. Like the men's race, there's a good portion of flat at the start with like Langermund and the Paderstraat, which are flat cobbled sections. That's in the northern loop that they do. And then the climbs start about 70 k's in with the Wolvenberg, the Molenberg, all the same sort of climbs, Valkenberg. The final is, but they only do the Quarmont once. So instead of doing 3 Quarmonts, they do, actually the hardest climb they first do is Koppenberg. The Koppenberg they do with 50, I can't count, 45 kilometers to go. And then that's followed by the Steenbinktrees, which is cobbled quite difficult. Then there's actually a fair bit of flat. There is proportionally much more flat, from my perspective, in the women's race, in the final, between the Valkenberg and the Koppenberg. Even though it might be the same, but proportionally, there is more flat in the race, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And then, yeah, Tijnberg, Allerkruisberg, then it's the Quarmont-Paderberg combination with about 18 kilometers, 20 kilometers to go. That starts before a 14-kilometer flat run into the finish in Oudenaarde. So it is a very difficult race. And last year there was like one winner in all the classics races when she really turned it on. That was Lotte Kopecky. She was by far the best. She doesn't look the same this year, or maybe others are better, like Marianne Vos. Vollering was also, because has longer climbs and harder climbs. Vollering also comes into her own as the best Ardennes rider in the world. She came second last year. But that team, Benji, there's a bit of drama, some strange SD Worx quotes. They're both
Mate.
lining up, Vollering and Kopecky. Fill me in on what this was.
It was really weird. As in, we've heard some rumors throughout the year that there was big money being thrown at Vollering from the likes of UAE, for example, if I recall correctly. There's some rumors about other teams floating around as well. Now, around lunchtime, I'd say, Daniel Benson from GCN reported through GCN that Demi Vollering was set to leave SD Worx. So, celebration, let's be honest, because Vollering leaving SD Worx is the best thing that can happen to women's cycling right now for the entertainment level, in my opinion. Sure. So that's number one. Then everybody's like, okay, sure. That means that SD Worx can't afford what Vollering desires financially and that other teams are able to offer that, is how I read that. A bit later, SD Worx tweets the following. Edwin Janssens, I think it's their like manager guy. Team manager. He says, we made Demi Vollering a generous offer and indicated that this should be responded to before a certain date. Vollering's management did not respond to this. Therefore, we assume that Vollering will leave the team at the end of the year. The report in the media that we recently sat down with Demi or her management is not true. Referring to the report of Daniel Benson, who then responds to that by saying that he literally asked Danny Stam, and Danny Stam said, yeah.
But it's such a weird thing to go crazy about correcting because it's not the main story. Like, the main story is not denied. So why would you be like, well, actually, there wasn't. I didn't speak to her about this 2 weeks ago. It was 3 weeks ago. It's like, okay, yeah, but she's leaving, right? Like, that's the story. It's very strange.
If she wasn't leaving, you just made sure that she's leaving.
Yeah.
Because that fucking statement is so passive aggressive. And what I dislike the most, that it's being sent out while their manager is literally on the bike. While their rider that it's about is literally on the bike and can't respond to it at all. Like, to me, that sounds really snaky.
Yeah, I mean, it's very strange to be addressing.
It's a self-report. Like, it feels like it's like
because also it makes it seem like there's bad blood. So then any small thing we see that happens now, we will interpret maybe that it's like, say we see Kopecky not helping Vollering or Vollering not in the Tour de France. Will we be saying, well, they're not very happy that she's leaving, so this is a punishment or something? I don't know, but it's a very strange statement. But those two line up. Pardon? Yeah, PR on goal. Those two line up with, on the provisional start list, Misha Bredevold, Van Black, Fischer Black, Heritza. Don't you think that's strange, their start list?
Yeah. I mean, maybe Wiebes was expected in this.
No Reusser, no Wiebes, no
maybe
Majerus.
Just trying to play out their schedule, because otherwise Wiebes is riding a lot of races too, Reusser too, so maybe this is Vollering's first races towards the Amstel kind of vibe. But before we dive into the actual details of the race, there's a moment in this race where Vollering has a mechanical, and I'm pretty sure that she only got help by the neutral car. So I'm not reading into the small things, but I'm saying her own car didn't want to help her.
Yeah, well, I mean, now you have to interpret it that way. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised to see that team was so climbing focused. Femke Ritze she's a good rider, but I was surprised not to see
agree
one of the bigger engines in there like Majerus or Royce, notwithstanding maybe the injuries.
It's like they saw the Amstel parkour or Brabantse Pijl.
Yeah, and I know it is hilly, so yeah, it's not necessarily going to be a problem. Team Visma Lisa Bike probably have the, I would say the second favorite over any of the Trek riders. Vos looks back to unbelievable shape, so Vos is one of the big contenders. Van Empel, Riedemann, Achterrechte, Neuyen, and Vigi, Margot Vigi. So but Vos looks really, really good. She came first in Omloop, ninth in Strada, which is too hard for her, and now the second Belgian race she's done, she won today. So she's a big, big contender, although this is harder than Dwars Duo for like a classic sprinter to win, I would say. Although she dropped Kopecky uphill today, no? Or was it on the flat?
It was more of a tactical team move on a flatter cobble sector, I'd say.
Okay. I have to go with Pak Petersen on Finish to Koenig. I can't wait to see how she goes. She came 5th today, 7th in Gaan Wevelgem. She is, unbelievably good. 8th in Almelo, 21 years old. Sometimes a little bit too over-eager, I think, pulling. And I can't wait to see her on a harder parkour on Sunday. So just watch out for Petersen. They also have a good team with Sanekant, Kastelein, Schweinberg is very good, and Julie de Wilde. Trek are probably the second strongest team in the race after SD Worx. And maybe will be the most cohesive with Longoborghini, Balsamo, Brand, Dijknen, Hansen, and Van Anrooy. I would say their two leaders really are Van Anrooy and Longoborghini. It's probably too hard for Balsamo. And yeah, they're just... and Dijknen, who knows, big race. She sometimes is better in the big races. Pfeiffer Georgie with the leader at DSM Firmenich, Post NL, Persico, and I think Persico will be the leader at UAE Team ADQ.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I? Is Canyon maybe third or fourth strongest team, Benji, or am I overrating Dijkert and Kasia?
I think that's a strong team.
It is a good
Xavi,
team. Yeah.
Dijkert, Paladin, like Dijkert. I don't know where to class her here, as I expected slightly more of her at Gent Wevelgem, I'd say. But Nivea Doma is definitely leader on this parkour, with Xavi and Paladin as early moves. So when I look at this race, I'm thinking like, as a team, SD Worx look more focused on their 2.5 leaders now. I'm saying 2.5 because I've got Kopecky, Vollering, and then Bredewold is kind of that rider that you could send in moves.
Like they put her in Strata break, no?
Yeah. Gerritsen, Fischer Black, and Van den Broek Black for me are the domestiques here.
Yeah.
And then I think about the other years, and like you mentioned, it's a different vibe where I feel less of a numerical advantage than I usually do when it comes to SD Worx. Which...
Yeah, the team looks weaker, doesn't it? Like, I like Fisher Black, don't get me wrong.
To me, it kind of looks like the kind of parkour where I'd say, well, the kind of team where in the past I would have said, with all these races, every other team except for SD Worx needs to go in the breakaway to make it as hard as possible to reduce their numbers before we get to the hills. This year I'm like, Visma's probably going to help control the breakaway with SD Worx, if a breakaway even starts on this. Because Vos is as much a candidate to win this, if not more in my head than Kopecky right now.
I think you're right. Like, Vollering might even be better on the climbs compared to...
Well, that I wouldn't say.
And to really flesh out what Benji's saying there, like, we take 97 Ks into the race, the Valkenburg, 800 meters, 5.4%. It's not that hard. The draft is still important. You then have rolling terrain for 11, 12 kilometers, or 10 kilometers rather, to the Kapellberg.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, you have another 10 kilometers of flat or downhill. Fisher Black cannot control rouleurs or heavier riders jumping on that terrain too well.
I will say, are we going off the unconfirmed start list too much?
Probably.
Because in my head, I'd feel fucked if Wibbers is not at start here.
Because you reckon she could run top 5.
She was climbing as good as Kopecky and Gent Wevelgem, which it's not the same, but it says something to me, you know? Like in Omloop, she wasn't climbing at all like Kopecky, but...
I think PCS has fucked us at Benji, because FirstCycling has the team we said should be going.
What the fuck?
We're shadowboxing. We're like, why are they sending why are they sending? It's like us spending 5 minutes being like, why is Visma sending Sepp Kuss? Maybe they have to send Sepp Kuss this weekend.
me playing advocate of the devil. Maybe that's the reason.
Yeah. Fuck me. We're idiots. Well, not really.
Okay.
We always use PCS provisionals just to be consistent. But
who's coming?
Yeah, they expect Vibers, Royce, and Madras, Bredevold, Kopecky, Vollering, the best classics team they have. All right. Forget what we just said. Canyon Schramm, I want to see Dijkert jumping early rather than following. She's got the big threshold, and she's not good in the bunch. I think she has to jump early and try like Lascano. She has to ride like Lascano would. Kasia has the punch. She should sit in the wheels and hope and have... It makes sense. Dijkert ahead, then for once, Kasia doesn't have to chase anything. She can sit in the wheels and then try and punch away on the Paterberg in the final. Like, I think she can actually drop everybody on that. That's how I think they should play it. Movistar looked very active.
I can't believe we spent 5 minutes dissecting the wrong team.
Yeah, well, It's their fault.
Should have confirmed it by now.
Yeah, confirm it. Send a confirmed start list next time. That'll teach me.
Sierra?
Movistar have Sierra, who's done very well in this race before. Norsgaard looks very good, as well as Mackay.
Yeah.
Bianic is more of the domestique. They'll probably be active, try to get a rider in the breakaway or jump early. Toledo de Jong's been quite good for Lotto Destiny. Again, we have a different start list between EF, or EF are confirmed. EF women are confirmed on PCS.
EF men's too.
What's with this team, right? For years, they put the start list up an hour before the race. And then when people called out Vord, and they're like, it was like always a day or two after the last other team. And someone said to the Vord, he's like, no, we don't. Well, what are you talking about? We never do that. Or it's not a deliberate thing. And it was like, and now they do them the earliest of any team. So happy with the change. But yeah, Faulkner, Borghese, and Borghese's been quite good. She's like a jumps in between moves type rider, quite active. Alison Jackson obviously won Roubaix. Lebecki, Rug, Kessler, and I already mentioned Faulkner, but she's probably their strongest rider. But she hasn't raced since a 2.2 Italian race in the start of March. But she did win Omloop van het Hageland and 6th in Strade. So she's in decent shape, and that was a 55-kilometer solo at Hageland. So we also know the way Faulkner will race and is best for her. It's the same way Jackson does.
That's where the newly formed SD Worx team that has now been better on the start list comes in with responding with the likes of Reusser to those moves of Faulkner and so forth. And that's where the interesting dynamic of this middle section of the race will come from, I think. Because then you look at how will the little Trek respond to that. And for me, a rider that has been doing really well in the last few weeks, including at Trofeo Binda, including at Gent-Wevelgem, Pfeiffer Georgie.
Yeah.
Roubaix fits her more. So the likelihood of podiuming Roubaix is high for me when it comes to Pfeiffer Georgie. RVV is a bit harder, but I reckon a top 5 is definitely doable.
See, it's tougher with the women's because there's no E3, and she didn't do Dwars Duur today. And so Gent-Wevelgem, she's not a sprinter. And she doesn't have like the best, I think, 30-second power. Although she does a good lead out. I think she's more like a just an overall good classics rider, elite classics rider. So Gent-Wevelgem, I can't read too much into that result. But then at Omloop, she was really good. And then also in Gent-Wevelgem, she was following the moves really, really well. But then she sat up and didn't pull on the group because they had Charlotte Kool behind. You're right. I think I do think she's better for Tour of Flanders than maybe you think, though. Okay. I think she looks in really, really good shape. She already did in the UA Tour. But to your point, Roubaix, she was top 10 last year and just cracked the top 20 in Flanders. So you're probably right that Roubaix does suit her more marginally.
I think she can win Roubaix. Well,
I mean, anyone can win. Not anyone, but like Roubaix, and it's a much more open race. Tour of Flanders, like the strongest rider in both the men and the women's normally wins. Like it's been Kopecky, Van Vleuten, Vandenbroek Black was kind of team stuff with SD Worx. But yeah, it's okay. We've run through, I believe, the strongest teams. Forgive me if we've missed anybody out. Probably FDJ with not trusting that.
Not Scylla, I think. I don't think Scylla is at the start because she was injured from Omloop, or it's been a while since he got injured.
Aargeest is someone to be careful of if she gets in a break. But yeah, they're not. Ambergraak is good as well. Gladys Verhulst, but they, probably more second, third tier team. Just whipping through to make sure I've not left anybody major out.
We mentioned all these teams, but I feel like we need to conclude in like how will the most important teams take this on? Because if I'm looking
SD Worx against Vos to me. SD Worx against Vos against Trek. That's how I see the race.
Yes, but somehow I don't see Trek winning. Because there's always faster riders around them.
Because both their leaders can't sprint.
unless Balsamo magically starts climbing like Weebus, I don't see her getting over every climb
not
like
on
that.
this parkour. No,
Exactly.
she already on the Camelberg. She had to come back, and that's like one climb every. They do it twice, and it's 2 climbs in the whole race. Here they have like 12, 15, and some of them are harder, like the Paterberg and the Koppenberg. So, yeah, I don't. Balsamo, they can't count on, frankly. And the problem is, as you said, so Longaborghini jumps, and she goes with Vollering. She loses the sprint. She jumps, goes with Vos, loses the sprint. Van Anrooy goes with Kopecky, loses the sprint. It's like what happened in Strada, but it was an
With
uphill sprint.
Niewiadoma, they both lose a sprint.
Niewiadoma, Longaborghini stops pulling, and they both come 5th. Like Amstel Gold Race. Yeah, Niewiadoma, who Longaborghini probably could beat in the sprint, she's like, no, I won't pull with you. I'll pull with Kopecky, though. I mean, what the problem is, she's even in Strada, she had Niewiadoma behind, she had teammate behind, and she's like, I'll pull full gas with Kopecky. I think this is going to be... I think Vollering, you might be right, Ben. She might be there, but she came 96th in Dwars Duel today. I don't know if she crashed or had an issue, but that's virtually in the last group.
How is Christina Schweinberger doing this? I feel like she's been there, but not been at the forefront every single race where I'd expect her last year, like in the World Championships. But I still hope that we get a Christina Schweinberger
She's
something
so
top 5. I'm such a fanboy.
Yeah, she's like got a big engine, and is good in like the harder, longer races, like World Championships. And she even showed that again this year. I can't remember which. She's had consistently good results without anything crazy, but I feel like she was in a front group. Maybe it was Omloop. She was in a front group, and I was like, holy shit, that wasn't a fluke last year, both in the TT and the road race. So she is an elite one. She's an elite, hard, long race rider. Top 10 in Gent-Wevelgem as well, even though she's not like, I think her sister might be the better sprinter. Yeah, her sister's the better pure sprinter. From memory.
What happens?
The battle.
Who wins?
I think Vos is gonna try use Trek. I think Trek are gonna be aggressive.
Yeah.
They are gonna try because they have to be, because they can't go to a sprint to win. They really do almost have to be solo. And I think Vos will go with Van Anrooy or Longaborghini, and then I think Vollering closes it and then drops them all. Maybe I'm overrating her shape, but maybe that 96 in Dwars Duel is like her worst result in a one-day race in ever. It's really staring at me in the face, like. And then with Vollering.
Yeah, like but I think she had a mechanical.
Oh, okay.
So maybe.
Yeah, but if she has a mechanical on Sunday, they're going to leave her.
And also, it's a bit of a... Well, they did today. Why do you think she's 96? She finished on a fucking broken bike.
She walked. She had to run the race. She had to run like Froome style. All good Tour de France winners. Run the final.
On a serious note, I think it's... You know what? I think Wibbs is gonna get dropped on the last climb. Gotta get like a very specific scenario going again, eh? Wibbs gets dropped on the last climb.
The Paterberg.
By yes.
She makes it that far.
Yeah. And Kopecky waits in Vos's wheel as Vos has to choose to ride Kopecky to the finish line because Wibbs is in the group behind and she doesn't want to sprint with Wibbs. And then should I involve a fourth rider for memes? Like, I don't know. Niewiadoma comes out of nowhere, finds a bridge and attacks and wins.
I mean, I love Niewiadoma to win. We're barracking for her.
That scenario is very unlikely.
I'm picking Faulkner. I think I can feel. I'm feeling a peloton fuck up. I'm feeling a Faulkner long solo where Kopecky and Vollering are riding their own race, and maybe Royce is doing some weird stuff, and then
you can have it.
You'll allow it. I can't, and also because I cannot see a very important rider on this start list, at least the provisionals. On Trek's Little Trek, I cannot see Ellen van Dijk.
Yeah.
She was key in Gent-Wevelgem closing down the late moves, and she's a big engine,
but
obviously.
She also had to come back on after the camel, if I recall correctly, together with Balsamo.
I'm talking early solo here for Faulkner.
Yeah.
I think Faulkner, she should go on the Valkenburg or Molenberg early and just hope there's chaos behind and try and get to the breakaway.
Almost the biggest weakness for Vos is that she's dependent on SD Works on bringing Dutch solos back.
That's why I mean, like, when it really starts to kick off, Vos will probably be isolated. Unless Fem Van Empel takes it. I know she's young, 21, and she was okay.
She was good today, but I think she was in a move somewhere. I don't remember if she mechanical as well or not. But at least her team didn't leave her behind.
Wouldn't the Tour of Flanders actually be like the better race for her than Gent-Wevelgem or Dwars do? Because it's harder. Like she's a cyclocross legend. She's a world champion cyclocross.
Yeah, like I wish she was there for Strade already, but then she was sick for Gent-Wevelgem. So I'm wondering, is she still sick going into RVV or not? Because that's like Dwars van Vlaanderen, she rode, but she was in a group. She was relatively okay, but she wasn't godlike per se. Then again, they flattened the last part of the parkour because of that car accident. So
she's a big wild card.
We still got a selective race.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love nothing more than Fem Van Empel, Puck Peters to be there with the SD Works.
No.
The SD workers.
I wanted to start with a victory on Strade Bianche for them. Just in my head, that would be such a good story.
Yeah, I'm still well raced Dutch after all. But yeah, I'm going with the Long Ranger. I think I feel a Long Ranger. I think Dygert could get involved, and that's the way for her to go. So they're the options. There's Dygert with a Long Ranger. Who did I pick? Faulkner, and there's normally one other that goes for that.
Brown?
Grace Brown as well, but I can't see her on the provisionals. 5 for Georgie. 5 for Georgie.
Provisionals.
If Georgie jumps like there with Faulkner on the Wolvenberg, is she respected too much? Like she'll get closed.
I don't know.
I think she has to jump early if she wants a chance. I think she got to ride this like Asgren rode and Pedersen rode men's race last year. I think Georgie's got to get ahead.
I think so too, but she might have gotten too much confidence from sticking with Kopecky and Wibazon and Camelback.
Yeah. Anyway, the big positive I want to say, I've picked Faulkner, Benji's picked
Vos.
The big positive I want to say is how actually this women's race has a lot more unknowns and tension going into it on paper than the men's race. And I can't wait to watch this with the SD workers, maybe with some internal disarray.
Yeah. Who knows who shows up?
Who knows who shows up? Kopecky not just dropping everybody every climb anytime she wants. Vos resurgent. Other teams looking good. Trek obviously performing very, very well. So I'm really excited to watch the women's race, and I think it's going to be hopefully outstanding. But maybe Kopecky's timing her peak for this. She has indeed won this race in the last 2 years, so she'll be trying to make it 3 in a row. But let us know who is your pick for the women's race. I think if I was the other teams, I'd try and ride it like Roubaix and let the disarray happen behind me. But I hope you enjoyed the previews of both these races. And we'll see you with the recap of them both on Sunday evening. Until then, ciao.